U.S. Navy launches a dramatic strike on an Iranian cargo vessel before moving in to seize control at sea. The vessel is left immobilized after precise gunfire targets and destroys its engine room systems. American forces later board the crippled ship and take full control, according to President Trump. Tehran strongly condemns the incident, warning it will respond to what it calls unlawful piracy. Escalating actions raise fears that conflict could reignite even before the fragile ceasefire expires. Iranian officials cast doubt on diplomacy, saying there are currently no plans to join upcoming negotiations. As the ceasefire moves closer to expiry, the U.S. has seized an Iranian cargo ship, adding fresh tension to an already volatile situation at sea. President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. military carried out the seizure of the Iranian vessel on April 19th. The U.S. military also released footage showing Navy fire hitting the cargo ship while it was out at sea. According to reports, a U.S. missile destroyer intercepted the ship as it allegedly attempted to head toward Iran. The Iran-flagged vessel was said to be traveling toward Bandar Abbas port when it was stopped, according to the U.S. military. U.S. officials say the ship ignored communications for more than 6 hours, which led forces to take action. The destroyer then reportedly ordered the crew to evacuate the engine room before opening fire to disable the vessel. Several shells from the warship's 5-inch Mk-45 gun struck the engine area, leaving the ship immobilized in the water. U.S. troops later boarded the Iranian vessel and took control without meeting any further resistance. The ship is now in U.S. custody following the operation, according to U.S. Central Command. U.S. officials say the vessel was taken into custody after it allegedly tried to break a U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. Iran has strongly condemned the operation as armed piracy and theft, and has vowed retaliation over what it calls a violation of the truce. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Today, an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them." The U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman, and gave it a fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engineer room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of its prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and are seeing what's on board. Mojtaba's most trusted military forces and Iraq's diplomatic camp are now colliding in a high-stakes power struggle over who really speaks for Iran in the Hormuz crisis. On April 17th, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi posted that the Strait of Hormuz was completely open to commercial traffic, in the middle of delicate ceasefire and nuclear talks. The message was widely seen as a signal of flexibility toward Washington, time to show goodwill as the ceasefire clock ticked down and negotiators weighed next steps. Donald Trump quickly praised the reopening, using it to hint that a broader deal with Tehran might be close and sending global markets a brief shot of optimism. But just hours later, IRGC Navy broadcasts told ships that Hormuz remained closed, warning captains they still needed explicit Iranian permission before entering the strait. One voice on the open radio said, "We will open it by order of Imam Khamenei, not tweets of some idiot," a stinging rebuke clearly aimed at Iraq's announcement. The IRGC-linked Tasnim news agency then blasted the foreign ministry, calling Iraq's tweet bad and incomplete and urging officials to reconsider this communication. Hardline lawmaker Morteza Mahmoudi publicly demanded Iraq's removal, accusing him of gifting lower oil prices to Trump by easing market fears too soon. Mahmoudi argued that by announcing Hormuz open, the foreign minister had eased pressure on Washington and undercut one of Iran's strongest bargaining chips. Reports say the IRGC was furious that Araghchi never coordinated the reopening message with military commanders, seeing it as both a procedural breach and a political misstep. A viral naval radio broadcast has triggered a sharp diplomatic spat, dragging both Iran and the United States into a fresh war of words over Hormuz. The Iranian embassy in South Africa jumped into the fray, openly mocking U.S. President Donald Trump in a pointed post on X. That remark came after circulation of an audio clip attributed to Iran's IRGC Navy, now widely shared on social media.
Persian Gulf and Oman Sea. This is Iranian Spat Navy calling.
In the recording, a naval voice warns commercial ships against entering the Strait of Hormuz without prior permission from Iranian authorities. Broadcast on International Maritime Channel 16, the message insists that Hormuz remains closed to any unauthorized vessels. It goes further, warning that ships linked to Iran's adversaries could be targeted if they attempt to force a crossing.
In Persian Gulf and Oman Sea, this is Iranian Sepa Navy calling you on Channel 16. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. We will open it by the order of our leader Imam Khamenei, not by the tweets of some idiots. If you want to pass through the strait, you must ask permission from Iranian Sepa Navy. All vessels that have a connection with our enemies will be targeted if they try to pass the Strait of Hormuz out.
After the clip began to go viral, Iran's embassy issued a sarcastic statement aimed directly at President Trump.
Persian Gulf and Oman Sea, this is Iranian Sepa Navy calling.
The Post dismissed claims that a derogatory term in the audio referred to Iran's own foreign minister, calling that interpretation misleading. Instead, the embassy claimed the insult was clearly directed at Trump, and told audiences to Google a certain word if they still had doubts. By urging viewers to search the term online, the embassy amplified its criticism and turned a naval warning into a global political meme. All of this is unfolding against the backdrop of rising Iran-US tensions over maritime security in and around the Strait of Hormuz. In Washington, reports say Trump has now called an urgent Situation Room meeting to discuss Iran's closure of the strait and possible US responses. Donald Trump has pulled his war cabinet into an urgent huddle just as Iran shuts the Strait of Hormuz again, sharply raising the stakes for both diplomacy and conflict. On April 18th, he reportedly convened an emergency Situation Room meeting specifically to respond to Iran's surprise decision to reimpose restrictions on the waterway. Senior figures including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Chief Pete Hegseth and the CIA Director John Ratcliffe were among those called in, highlighting how serious the moment is. Trump's inner circle confidants like Scott Bessant, Susie Wilkes along with Joint Chiefs Chair Dan Kane, were also reportedly at the table. One U.S. official has already warned that if no breakthrough comes soon, the war could resume within days, underscoring how fragile the current pause really is. The crisis session lands just days before the current U.S.-Iran ceasefire is due to expire on April 22nd, adding extra pressure to decide whether to extend talks or restart strikes. Reports also say Iran has privately warned it could resume missile fire on Israel if the new ceasefire in Lebanon breaks down or is not carried into a longer-term deal. A 10-day Israel-Hezbollah truce started on April 18th, yet Israeli officials have already labeled it temporary, hinting they still see unfinished business in the north.